Good evening. My name is Barry Burton. I'm the Pinellas County Administrator, here with the Sheriff Gualtieri to discuss some actions regarding the coronavirus and where we stand today. Earlier today, the Board of Commissioners met to discuss where we're at in both the response and also actions that have been requested of the Commission and the deliberations the Sheriff and I have had to make and decisions we've had to make over the past several weeks. Today, the Board of Commissioners extended the emergency order. They did so based upon us continuing to see a climb in the overall numbers of our community. We have seen the increase steadily slow, but it's still going up. We're not there yet. What we're asking is that we continue our diligent effort to try to keep the community spread from occurring, to stay at home, be safe, and allow this to move through our community and us not be overwhelmed by the numbers. We've done a good job. It's beginning to take effect, but remember, it was just a few weeks ago that we began the safer at home practices. The governor's order is very clear. It says that you cannot leave your house except for essential services. As a result, you've seen businesses and others that are trying to deal with this. But again, we're very close to seeing the peak of this, a few weeks away, and so we're continuing that effort as we extend the order.
So why don't we go ahead with questions? Sure.
Sheriff, are you giving deputies masks to wear?
The answer is yes. The deputies have the masks, especially what we call the N95 mask, which is the one that provides the most protection. Now, they don't wear them all the time. They wear them only when necessary if they're going into an environment where there's an indication that there's a need. The N95 masks are in short supply across the country, so it's really not feasible that people wear them all the time. So you may see them here or there, but they are issued them.
Thank you. What is the survival rate if someone gets coronavirus?
A lot of factors that determine that. There are many people that get the coronavirus where they have very minor symptoms. Others, if they have a compromised immune system or other health issues, that it can be deadly. And so it varies greatly.
Another question related to that. Why are the numbers reported based on total number of positives and not the number of active cases? It seems a little deceiving.
Well, I think to some degree, that's really a question for the Florida Department of Health. They're the ones that create the statistical model, and they're the ones that report it. So we, like you, are a consumer of that information, but that's something that really would have to go to the Department of Health. I don't think we can answer that question for you.
How is the WWE an essential business?
Well, there's a lot of determination that's being made by people at various levels of government. And one of the things that we've been stressing, and one of the things that's very important for you all to know, is that the total 100% discretion and determination about what is an essential service or an essential activity is made by state government. That means it's made by the governor. The governor is the one that issued the order saying what is essential, so he makes that determination. So that's really a question for state government and not a question for me or for the county government.
The city of St. Petersburg is closing tennis courts, skate parks, and dog parks. Different closures depending on where you live can get confusing. Will the county be looking to add these closures as well?
We have included in our closures pools and beaches. We are not looking at closing additional things unless there's some compelling reason to do so. Down in St. Petersburg, they felt as though they had a particular issue to address in their community, and they took actions to resolve that. I don't believe a blanket order in all situations is necessary. So unless there's some reason to change, no, we're not considering additional closures.
I want to just take that opportunity to thank the public and the community here at large, because for the most part, people are following the distancing requirements. We do have all the parks open. We have other recreational areas open, and people are really doing a great job overall. So I don't see any reason. Obviously, the city of St. Pete saw some things that they felt they needed to act on. But from what I see around the county is that it's being done well by the majority of the people. And really want to thank everybody for doing that, because we all want to get to the same place and put this behind us as quickly as we can.
For some of the folks that may just be joining us, you mentioned the Board of County Commissioners' action today in extending the local state emergency. When was that extended till?
That is extended until next Friday, so from tomorrow through the following Friday. And that's because we're limited to extending an order for 7 days. And so that's, we'll meet each week. The commissioners have asked us to have data and information, give the trends and things that show where we're at in this fight, and then that way they can use that data to make a decision regarding the extension of the orders, and both the emergency order and any supplemental orders like the closure of the pools and beaches.
I just want to address something because it might be a reason for the question is that, as the administrator said, under Florida law, local state of emergencies can only last for 7 days. But if the crux of the question is how long is the extension for, because you're trying to get to how long is this going to go on and how long are we going to be under the state of emergency, how long are we going to be under the safer at home order, I really believe a significant pivot point where we're going to get some guidance from the state will be 2 weeks from tomorrow. Because April 30th is when the governor's safer at home order expires. And so a decision will have to be made by the governor what he does with the order at that point. And his options would be is to let it lapse, kick it back to local governments. He could extend it. He could modify it in some fashion and extend it. I really don't know what he's going to do. None of us do, and I believe they're having discussions and active discussions in the governor's office about what they're going to do in 2 weeks. So I really think you're not going to see much action on anything, is my prediction, until we get close to that day and see what happens at the expiration of the state safer at home order.
But as you can see in other states, and they're trying to make decisions the same way of how they reopen their government, the key is to have the state policies with our local policies mirror and work in conjunction with each other. So understanding where the state goes with the business and the essential business closures, and our local orders, which are like the beaches and the pools and things like that, we need to look at that, all together and make informed decisions as we get closer to that time.
Are there any new updates as far as schools are concerned?
Not that I've heard of. I know the schools, and both at the state and at the local level, are discussing those issues, but we do not. I don't have anything at this point.
When do you think non-essential businesses like hair salons will start reopening? Is there any type of plan in place?
Well, that goes back to what I just said, is that all of those businesses that are non-essential are controlled by the governor's order. So we got to wait and see what he does, and I don't anticipate that you'll have any information on that until 2 weeks from now. Of course, we all hope that we'll get some indication a day or two before as to what he's going to do. But until the governor does something with that statewide safer at home order, those businesses are non-essential and they have to remain closed.
Are residential cleaning services considered essential?
Yes.
If a city does not enforce the order regarding salons and barbers, will the sheriff's office handle it?
Yes, and we are countywide, is that we have teams of deputies throughout Pinellas County, from Tarpon Springs to the Sunshine Skyway Bridge and from the Gulf to the Bay. At any given time, we have about 25 deputies out there from about 7 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night throughout all of Pinellas County, including the cities of St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Largo, the unincorporated area. So we're throughout the county and responding to complaints about violations. So we're doing it, doesn't matter where it is in the county, and we're handling it.
During the meeting today, I know the commission was discussing loosening a few of the restrictions. Was there any discussion on dog groomers?
There's been discussion on a lot of small businesses, and I completely understand the request. The businesses are hurting. There's legitimate reasons why the businesses need to occur. But again, it goes back to, unless the governor's order specifically listed you as an essential business, it is not essential. And so until that is modified, we simply are following the governor's order in terms of essential and non-essential businesses.
Why aren't you enforcing crowds at boat ramps, especially on the weekends?
Well, I don't know that we're not. The order is that, of course, people can boat, and boating's fine as long as they stay 50 feet apart on the water and no more than groups of 10. But one of the things that people have to keep in mind is that you may see let's say 5 or 6 people all together, and those 5 or 6 people are all one family. This is something that we get complaints about, is that whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's at Home Depot, Lowe's, other stores, is that people will see people who are together. They're not 6 feet apart. But if they live under the same roof, part of the same family, et cetera, then that's okay. So, if you see people together on a boat ramp, is that it might be those people that are getting out of the boat and may well be within the guidelines of having no more than a group of 10. And if the next question is that, well, why group of 10? Is that I don't know. That's what they said. That's what the state said in the executive order. And we can have a lot of discussion about a lot of what are in these orders and whether they make sense or whether we would do it the same way. But that's not our role. That's not our job. We don't get to do that. Is that they get to set it and we get to enforce it. So, a lot of times if you see people that are on that boat ramp or that boat launch and getting ready to go on the boat, as long as they can have no more than a group of 10 on the boat, you're going to see a few people that are congregating together as they get on the boat.
Has there been an adjustment to the anticipated peak? Seems to be a moving target for you all.
There are lots of different models out there, and so that's something that we're constantly looking at. There's models out of Washington, there's models that the state provides. So yes, and I think that also has to do with the testing. And so we're watching that closely. It did move from originally a week ago, or last week it was the 21st, and that moved to the 25th. And so we're going to continue to watch that. Again, we've seen a slowing of the number of new cases. Hopefully that continues, and that will probably adjust that model as they watch those trends continue.
We all know that phrase about something being an art, not a science, and I would say that very much holds true with this modeling. As it's been said, all models are wrong. Some have some benefit. You just have to figure out what that benefit is, but it is really the only method we have of trying to use the data in some predictive way. So we all have to look at it very cautiously, and we do look at it cautiously and try, but we have to use it to try and engage, and that's what we're trying to do. But we are also approaching it with a very cautious eye because we understand that it is not 100%.
Are there any resources available for folks that are unemployed in the county? Obviously, there have been some issues with the unemployment website. Is there any interface there or anything folks can do locally?
Yes, for assistance locally, please call 211. 211 will hook you up with, they have resource connections to anyone that can provide assistance. We are also looking at the CARES Act and we talked with the commissioners this morning. They directed staff to design programs around once we receive the money from the CARES Act to be able to provide opportunities for individuals, direct assistance to individuals. More to come on that as the program guidelines come out from the federal government on the 24th, I believe, of this month. But again, the commissioners, that was one of the actions the commissioners took this morning, is to authorize me to receive the federal funds and design programs to get that in people's hands as quickly as possible.
Should people consider canceling vacations they've scheduled for May or June?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. Certainly right now we're trying to, I think the sheriff has used the term, don't take our foot off the gas. We're trying to keep these practices in place to keep that spread from occurring or a reemergence of those trends that were so alarming just a week ago, 10 days ago. And so right now's not the time to be traveling if you can prevent that. However, I don't know what the purpose of the travel would go for. You got to be safe.
There's a little bit of confusion out there, it seems, as far as business owners that may own a non-essential business being able to still travel to the business to do some minimum amount of work to keep it open. Can you clarify that?
Sure, there's absolutely no problem with that. And it's specific within the orders that people, employees, business owners can go to their business to maintain the business, to make sure that things are going well. As an example, if you have refrigeration units, to make sure that they're operating, to check on the business, to do work within the business. So If you are a business owner, feel free, absolutely. Go to your business, take care of it, make sure that everything is going on there that needs to be. If you need to bring in an employee or two to help maintain the business, you can do that as well. You just can't be open for business where you've got customers coming and going and having all that contact, and again, which is the contact that causes the community spread or adds to the community spread. So, also know that what you're doing by being closed, as much as it's hurting and it is very difficult, it's working to flatten that curve. So we all hope that we can get out from underneath this as soon as possible. But again, we have to use that data and we have to wait for the state to act.
Is the county doing anything to extend due dates for utilities and things of that nature? Any types of fees? Any assistance for folks that may be struggling?
We are with our utilities department. I think there's a delay in terms of water shutoffs and things like that. So they're trying to work with customers. Without getting into specifics, we have a lot of stuff on our website. If you have a question, please call our customer contact number, and they can tell you the programs and offerings for the particular issue.
Sheriff, if folks are seeing violations out on the beaches, how can they report that?
The best way is to call 727-582-TIPS, and again, that's 727-582-TIPS. And we have a call center here at the Sheriff's Administration Building that's staffed 7 days a week from 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. And if you see any violation of any of the orders and you want to report it, you're welcome to do that. But I would say, as far as the beaches are concerned, and again, remember, is that what are closed are all the public beaches. You do have some beaches out there that are private, where there's homes, etc. And so this is not a situation where there is nobody on the beach. It may feel like that compared to the way it normally is this time of year, but you will see some people out there. So again, especially where there's private property, etc. So if you are calling because you happen to see just somebody out there, that may not be a violation, and we'll look at it, and you're welcome to call, but you may not see a change because of it. If you see groups, if you see people in the public area, the public beaches, the public sand, etc., feel free to call, and we will take a look at it.
Sheriff, our public education programs here at the Sheriff's Office and various community programs, are those going to be held starting in May or June, or is there any plan for that?
Yeah, it's too early to tell. Of course, we have suspended all programming for the foreseeable future, and it's just too early to tell. We're not going to bring people back here and reinitiate any programs until we know it's absolutely safe to do so. To be honest with you, at this point, from where we are, what we see with the data, and everything that needs to be done to gradually, and this is not going to be one day we're in one mode, the next day we're in another mode. It's going to have to be a gradual re-implementation. I wouldn't expect to see much here as far as the citizen programming, whether it's a Citizens Academy or all the other programs that we have. I wouldn't expect to see anything probably till the summer sometime.
Assistance for small businesses. We see that the county has launched a small business assistance program. Can you talk about that?
Well, there's two things. One, there's assistance through other means, through state programs and federal programs. That was currently offered through our Small Business Assistance Center. They will link you up with those programs and assist you in navigating for assistance with those. Earlier today, what I was talking about earlier is that with the CARES Act, the stimulus dollars that the county will be receiving, we also will be developing a program designed for small businesses to assist you during this time, those impacted by the coronavirus. Those program details will be forthcoming. Before we can finalize the program, we have to get the federal guidelines, which are due to come out and be published on the 24th of April.
Sheriff, why is it that Florida Fish and Wildlife has no issue with fishing charters, but the Sheriff's Office seems to?
Yeah, I can't speak to FWC. All I can tell you is that what is within the scope of the governor's order, what's permissible and what is not. And people can fish, but fishing charters are not an essential business. So that means you can't travel from your home to a fee-based boat service, whether it's a ferry, whether it's a fishing charter, whether it's any other type of a charter or rental, that is simply just not within the scope of the governor's order. And I would suggest that FWC isn't really enforcing that, and maybe they're not familiar with it because what they do is on the water. And if a boat is on the water, they don't necessarily know how somebody got there, et cetera, because remember that state order is a travel ban. But again, really can't speak to their interpretation or why they would do or not do anything. I can tell you what we have to do and what we need to do under the state Safer at Home order.
Roofing companies can work on new construction but not on occupied residence. Is that accurate?
No, that's not true. Roofing companies can operate, whether it's a residence or whether it's new construction or whether it's doing repairs, especially doing repairs to current structures. That's absolutely within the scope of an essential service.
Why didn't we see a lot of these measures during the swine flu epidemic?
Can't answer that. Don't know.
A lot of this is centered around, when we would dial this back down is based on a decline in cases. What is the metric for that? What does that look like?
I think it's going to be several data points. And so we put together a little data-driven group that's looking at number of cases, number of hospitalizations. The one thing you want to make sure is that your first responders, our medical personnel are protected. If you look back just 1 week ago, the models showed that we would exceed the ICU beds at our hospitals just 1 week ago. That curve has flattened, and now we're not projected to exceed the capability of our hospitals. So flattening the curve, is real, and the actions that we've taken, that you've taken, to help our medical personnel has caused that to where it looks like it will not exceed our hospital capability. So we're looking at all those metrics. We're looking at number of beds, looking at how much it's increasing per day. We're looking at the total cases. We're also looking at the testing. Right now, we're at 1% of our population has been tested, yet we see new labs opening up, and testing capability that we have is becoming much more robust. So we want to see all of those things and see a downward trend as we make some of these decisions. We've also seen other parts of the world where they took their foot off the gas too early, and they've seen a resurgence of the cases actually going back up to where they had to re-employ measures to try to get control of the situation. So we want to be measured in this. We certainly want to get back to what we were advocating, in the very beginning, which is safe distancing practices and allowing businesses to stay open to where people can support their family. We absolutely understand that, but we also don't want to see us to go backwards and have a resurgence to where we can't control it.
Two-part question for you, Sheriff. Will police academy sessions be postponed? And for those that are beginning to apply for law enforcement officer positions, do you have any advice for them during this time?
Well, I think the process is going to be delayed. As far as the police academy is concerned, it's closed right now. It's due to reopen in May. But like with everything, I think it's a fluid date. We want to get it back up and running as quickly as we can and working with the training center on that. But as far as hiring is concerned, it is a big process, but it unquestionably is going to be delayed. We're still taking applications, we're still working the files, but we're not able to do a lot of the testing and other things that we were doing. So I think that you're going to see probably a several month delay beyond what it normally takes.
Are there any regulations that require stores to prioritize the restocking of certain items?
Not that I'm aware of.
Can you talk a little bit, we've got a lot of questions today as far as the pools and stuff, which I know was a big discussion earlier today. Can you just speak to that a little bit more?
Well, we did talk about pools and beaches today, and those are local orders. Obviously a couple weeks ago we saw, and the problem is we saw large gatherings at pools at the height of the concern. Now, there are thousands of pools, in Pinellas County. You have small condo pools where you probably have 1 or 2 people going, and they're absolutely implementing safe practices and things like that. But we also had pool decks that were full of people. And that adds to that risk. It adds to the community spread, and that's exactly what we cannot have. So there was questions about when would we be able to modify these orders. Well, we're looking at that. We've also reached out to our cities to get input from them because there's these things have implications everywhere. The sheriff's concern is that when we do it all at once, or incorporate all pools at once. Well, those are things we're looking at. It's hotel pool, condo pools, community pools, all of those various issues. So we are going to begin, we have started, but we're going to begin to develop options. We're going to discuss those with the commissioners on a weekly basis. And then, the same way with the beaches, and options and alternatives. Again, we want to be ready when we see the numbers decline and it's safe to be able to modify some of these practices, coinciding with any modifications to the governor's order.
If we don't do it consistently, it creates a level of unfairness, and it becomes a have-not situation. It is unworkable from an enforcement standpoint, and it really upsets people when some people get to do things that others do not. So this is blanket across the board for all the reasons the administrator said, because we saw a lot of problems going back a couple weeks ago. And if, as an example, we were to say, okay, is that condominium pools and apartment pools, let's say hypothetically, okay, you can have people in your pools, but hotels, community associations, others can't, or you can have, if you have this size of a pool or not, it just creates a very unworkable situation. We understand that people want to exercise, they want to get back in the pools, but it really has to be an all or nothing situation. And again, is the current environment with the numbers still going up, and we're making progress, but we're not there yet, and we don't feel that it's the right time today to just reopen the pools. The last thing we want to do is to take that foot off the gas pedal and to take some of these measures back and then have that resurgence and have to go back in the other direction. That would be terrible for everybody for a whole bunch of reasons. So we're really trying to be consistent. As I've said many times, to be consistent is to be fair, to be fair is to be consistent, and it needs to be across the board. So we're well aware of the concern that people have, and hopefully within a short amount of time we'll be able to bring forward some recommendations and be able to relax this in some fashion. Exactly what that's going to look like, we're in the process of discussions with that now, and trying to work through it so that there is a plan when the time comes.
So last question. Recreational boating is, of course, all right currently, but many small kayak rental places have been closed. Can you speak to that?
Same reason I talked about before is that you can't leave your house to go rent. So you can recreate, and you can get on a boat and get on a kayak. And again, neither one of us, neither I nor the administrator, wrote this order. We didn't draft it. Okay, but we have to abide by it and we have to implement it. Is that those rental places, whether it's a kayak rental, canoe rental, boat rental, whatever it is that renting anything is not an essential activity. And there's a very, very specific list of what is essential. Everything that is not listed as being essential is not essential. The order doesn't list, okay, here's what you can do and here's what you can't do. Here's what's essential and here's what's not essential. It says here's what's essential and everything else is on the no list. And these rental type services are not on the essential list. That means they're on the no list, and you can't do it. So you can't travel to engage in, as an employee, the business of renting, or as a consumer to rent the boat, rent the kayak, or whatever it is. So we really appreciate everybody joining us tonight, and we look forward to taking your questions again next week. If something significant changes between now and then, we'll do it sooner, but next Thursday, which is April 23rd, we'll do another Facebook Live session at 5:00 p.m. So if you have any questions or concerns between now and then, you can call the Pinellas County Citizens Information Center, or you can call the Sheriff's Tip Center at 727-582-TIPS. And we look forward to taking your questions again next Thursday at 5:00. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.